And so I can understand concern for my 13-year-old, but his political views being associated with mental health kind of worries me.
Hey, this is Diane Rick.
And I'm Rick Voiles.
We've been working with co-parents in conflict for more than 2 decades. We've taught classes, written books, counseled parents, empathized and agonized a few times to help people make sense of their complicated families.
We were talking one day and it occurred to us that helping the most difficult cases comes down to one simple concept. Is one parent willing to let go of the tug-of-war rope, or is it worth it to hold on and fight?
So we invite you to take this journey with us each episode as we tackle the questions, should you hold on or let it go?
Welcome to Co-Parent Dilemmas, where we give you practical solutions to those impossible co-parents. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Rick.
How are you?
It's good to actually see you in person.
Yes.
So how are you?
I am good. Yeah, we had a special celebration last night with your retirement.
I know. It was awesome. So great. So
yes,
weird.
It was.
I didn't expect that. So
that was
very
really
sweet.
nice.
Very sweet. And I've had my mom in tow. She's 88 years old, but she is a trooper.
She is.
So
oh, my gosh.
So it's been great to have her here for a week now. So we'll see how that goes. But hi, Mom, in case she's listening. So today's good news story.
All right.
This was sent to me by one of our listeners, so I'm really excited that our listeners are enjoying the good news story. This is a story about a homeless heroin addict. James Bowen, a homeless heroin addict, quit his addiction because of a stray cat he named Bob. James found Bob injured in 2007 and began caring for him, which gave his life a purpose and aided him in quitting heroin and returning to a normal life. James Bowen wrote a book featuring the cat Bob as the main character, and the book made it to the bestseller list and was turned into a film called A Street Cat Named Bob.
Wow.
In which Bob himself appeared. James has written several books starring Bob the cat, and he now works in supporting the needy and homeless, as well as charity work and rescuing street animals.
That is an incredible story.
Yeah, I love that. I love when animals are used to help humans heal.
And Bob's a star now, right?
Yes. And you've heard of those prison programs where the prisoners get an opportunity to train dogs.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they get to go home with them, or people can come to the prison and adopt those. I love those stories. So this is awesome.
Cool. Congratulations.
So thank you, Facebook listener, for sending.
Yes, contributing to the value of the show, the quality of the show, actually.
Love it.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit trepidatious. Is that a word?
It is now.
I have some trepidation.
Okay, we'll do it that way.
About this email that we're going to talk about today.
Oh, boy.
Because it's very contemporary, but it's a touchy subject.
Like we've never dealt with touchy subjects before, or is this way beyond?
So I know in my family, my extended family, it's been a touchy subject. And maybe I think in yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
everywhere.
We're talking about the political landscape. And I promise you, listeners, we're not going to go into politics in this. But I'm assuming, when I read this, I am assuming that many of our listeners are experiencing this either in their own immediate family or in their extended family. And I thought it was appropriate to talk about. So,
right. If it's a dilemma that one of our co-parents.
It is a dilemma.
Yeah,
it is
definitely.
Right down the middle of a dilemma, right? So I'll read. This is from Thomas. I'm not sure, or he says, Diane and Rick, I'm not sure if you have any experience with this, but I am wondering how to handle talking to my child about weird political ideas his mom and stepdad are putting into his head. My son is 13, and I want to go into what, My son is 13, and I won't go into what he is saying, but it's obvious they are listening to extreme viewpoints. I want my child to be free to think for himself, but I'm very concerned about his mental health. Thanks, Thomas. What do you think his question is? Because he didn't really ask a question.
He didn't ask a question. And so I can understand concern for my 13-year-old, but his political views being associated with mental health kind of kind of worries me. Only an idiot can believe what.
Do we need to unpack that, whether
Is-
political views can create mental health issues?
Oh no,
Okay.
no, that's clear.
Yes.
But to hold a particular opinion and then say, well, is there a pill for that so that we can? But I think his question is, how do I help my child's thinking but not put him in the middle?
Right.
That's what I would.
Or the question could be, how do I get my child to believe like me without saying the other parent is wrong?
Right. How do you? I don't know
Mm.
that you can do that.
So I thought the best way to deal with this would be to sometimes when I'm teaching parents how to talk to their kids about something that's connected to their other parent,
Yeah.
I will say, don't mention the other parent's name, but find another way to talk about that issue that isn't connected to that parent.
More of a general global issue because it is
Right.
an issue.
Right,
Okay.
right. So I'm thinking this is very much akin to, I think, an episode we did before about religion.
Yeah.
And I will put that in the show notes when I find the episode that is. But that parents get very upset about one parent indoctrinating their child in a different religion than they believe in, or maybe the same religion but a different sect of
Yes.
that religion that they view to be extreme or weird.
Yes.
So this is kind of the same. Would you think it's sort
I
of
could
the
carry it
same?
even further. I mean, any kind of passionate, fanatical. I mean, like baseball or sports or. I mean, there are some pretty committed views out there in one particular area that if you're not aligned with, then there's
Right.
something wrong with you.
And I think in our past episode, we did talk about extreme views. So, when we're doing social behavioral research, oftentimes we see results on a bell curve.
Mhm.
You know what I mean by a bell
Yep.
curve? So if
Yep.
you think of a curve that goes, how do I explain that?
It's low on
Well,
one
I'm on
side.
video, so I can go, it
Yeah.
goes like this.
Yeah.
And what we know is there'll be a certain percentage in that curve which represents the mid or
Yep.
the median
Yep.
of people that think this way. And then there's people on the fringe
Both
right
ends.
down here.
Yes.
And we find in religion, there's always going to be a fringe of extreme beliefs.
Yes.
The vast majority of people are going to fall in that median or midsection,
Yes.
right? And
Yep.
not have those extreme views. But we can get very, very upset about the extremes. And I sort of feel like that's how politics is as well.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Politics, but then there's an association with some sort of threat or fear.
Right.
If you're going to take that extreme view, then why is it a threat to me that you take that extreme view, or that is your view, or that your view is different from mine? Why is that threatening?
That's a good question, because it's your child.
Well, yeah, okay, I could see, yeah.
But that is
right.
a good question. Is my child allowed to believe differently from me with regard to religion?
And would the child
or
become
politics?
a threat to me? Can I see my child as a threat to me? Taking a
Well,
different.
let's talk about this from the perspective of cults.
Okay, a little bit culty.
Yes,
A little plug in there
right.
All right.
So if an extreme belief could represent my child being cultified. I don't know if that's a word
Manipulated,
either.
brainwashed.
And
Yeah.
will that harm my child at some point, change my child's values? So if there is a threat, I guess some people it would be personally threatening because they want to be in control of their child. But I could also understand it's not a control issue, but you were worried, is my child going to go down that path
Yes.
of cultish kind of behavior? And would you say in politics there are some sects, S-E-C-T, sects of the political landscape that could be viewed as cultish?
Yeah, all of them that aren't mine. Yes, I would. Exactly.
Okay. So if we look at it from that perspective, Thomas does have
A legitimate
a
question.
fear.
Yes.
And what if my child begins to bring home these ideas? How do I talk about it with my child without it making it sound like I'm tearing down his other parent?
Well, in And to carry the thread a little bit further, if my goal as a parent is to raise a child who is going to be healthy and productive citizen in community, as successful with personal and professional relationships, then how they respond to life in general, or the point of view they take about life, is going to impact whether I think they're going to be successful.
Sure. So there are, I'm going to assume, on the extremes of anything, religion, politics, or any of that, there's going to be a certain amount of fear.
Yes.
That has to be instilled in the child, right? Fear of everybody who's not us.
Right. Exactly.
And do we want our children to live in fear?
Well, I don't know about fear, but certainly caution. We tell our kids don't hang around with that group.
Certain types of people that could get them in trouble.
Correct. Right. Yes. It could be even dangerous. Yeah. So then it's the same thing. Don't think like those people because it could be harmful to you.
Right. So there's a couple of things. One of the things is when a child is very young, it is easy to put ideas into their head. Correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I think it is important to give your children different perspectives, especially when they're young. And as they grow older, you hope that they learn to see different perspectives about social issues, about religion, about politics, about all those things that are talked about a lot.
Yep.
In our world. And I think at some point you have to let their own brain mature because young adults don't have any life experience. What happens to us, Rick, as we have lots of life experience? What happens to our viewpoints over time?
We get tainted and crotchety.
Speak
or by
for
just
yourself.
speaking. Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess that's just...
I think over time, we gravitate more towards the middle because we have life experience with lots of different people. And I don't know, maybe because I've been a therapist, I get more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself more and more compassionate because I hear more and more stories, and the more we get to know people. So it's not healthy to only expose your child to one type of thing or one type of person, or because they don't get the benefit of saying, oh, there's different points of view. It's why it's good for your child to do a little world travel occasionally, or leave the neighborhood, or
right.
leave the county.
Go to college. Yes, that was the
right.
point of college, was to go and hear other points of view to develop critical thinking skills. I'm not sure we've been able to carry on that tradition of teaching critical thinking skills.
Right. So we agree on all that, correct?
Yeah. So we're not extremes. We're right in the middle of the bell curve in this room right now.
In this room. Right.
Okay.
So now
test case of 2.
So now let's get to Thomas's question.
All right.
So we have to make some assumptions about why Thomas is asking this question. So I'm going to assume he's just really worried about his child not being extreme and not excluding lots of people from his life.
Well, he's hearing things. Apparently, the child's obviously bringing it home, or otherwise, how would he know?
Yeah.
That they're.
And let's assume that maybe he sounds kind of like he might be more in the middle, but let's say he's on the other extreme, just for the sake of talking about this.
Yep.
And your child comes home and says, and I'm not going to talk politics, the sky is green.
Okay.
And the parent is like, where'd you hear that from?
Mm-hmm.
Mom told me the sky is always green.
Okay.
And Thomas wants to say what?
It's not green. Your mom's crazy.
To which, what will the child do with that?
Go tell mom. Dad says you're crazy.
Well, it depends. What is the child's relationship with mom?
Well, it's a primary relationship. They're close.
I know, but we don't know what his relationship is with the mom. If he has a difficult relationship with his mom and he sees an opportunity to have a better relationship with mom, is the child's motivation to believe that the sky is green going to be higher?
Yeah, because mom's going to love him more or like him more.
Maybe. I mean,
yeah.
Not.
I could see the potential.
Probably not true, but that's a perception.
Sure.
That my mom needs me to be like her, think like her, feel like her. Now that she's got stepdad who's really supporting mom thinking the sky is green, I kind of think I better believe the sky is green, because if I do, she's going to approve of me. And when I go home and tell Dad that, I kind of want him to agree too, because then I don't feel like I'm lying to myself. But if Dad says, "What the heck are you talking about?" Now I'm kind of in some internal conflict.
But then you're also saying that the child doesn't have enough sophistication to be able to say, I have to do this here, but over here, I don't have to believe it's
Well,
green.
they don't sometimes have that sophistication because
Right.
they're in survival mode, emotional survival. Do you know
Or
what I'm saying?
and I don't want to slip over here, so I've got to hold it everywhere I
Right.
go. Okay.
So I want to kind of take this in the direction of the chameleon effect. Remember we talked about that? Elizabeth Marquardt wrote the book Between Two Worlds many
Yep.
years ago, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And she identified something called the chameleon effect, where a child is so much wanting a particular parent's approval that their perception, whether it's true or not, is when they're in that home, they cannot represent anything at all that looks like the other parent, because I'm aware as a child that the parent I'm wanting attention from does not like or hates my other parent.
Right.
And maybe they've even at one point said, "Stop doing that. You look just like your dad."
Yep.
Stop, with, that mannerism that reminds me of
Hold
your
your head
mom.
like that. Yes, right.
Don't say those words. You're sounding just like the other parent. To which the child goes, "Oh, okay, that's off limits. So I have to change colors." So when I'm in Dad's house, I have to be blue. And when I'm in Mom's house, I have to be yellow. And there do the two meet, because maybe both parents are difficult.
Yeah.
And the child's aware they do not like each other. So when at Dad's, be like Dad. When at Mom's, be like Mom. Say all the right things, agree with all the things that they want me to agree with. And they bifurcate themselves. And the research around that was, as she talked with adults who had divorce in their childhoods, they were very successful in their career.
Right.
They were successful because they learned to be a team player.
Professionally, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a professional, hey, I know how to, mold myself into what this team needs. Or if you're in sales, I know how to, relate to the customer and be what you need me to be. And those are all great career skills, but they reported that they sucked at relationships.
Right. Because they don't know who they are.
Right.
Yes.
They grew up with a false identity of whoever I'm with, I become them.
Right.
In order to please, so that I can avoid conflict or be approved. But anytime you deny yourself, you're going to be sad. You're going to get angry. You're going to get depressed. You're going to be anxious.
Right.
And they were reporting all of those things. So it's very, very important that you let a child know they're free to be who they need to be, without, if Dad says, "Oh, that's your mom. Yeah, everything over there is yellow, but here we're blue." The child never gets to be green.
Right.
Right?
Yellow and blue make
or red and blue make purple. So
Okay.
I remember saying to my little kid clients, we would draw, or I had a coloring page with a chameleon on it, and I would have them, and I'll actually put that in the show notes too, because I have that resource where it kind of explains, have you ever felt like a chameleon where you couldn't be yourself because you needed to be what each parent needed you to be in that? And so I would say, okay, let's pick two primary colors, and then let's make you a combination of both, and you get to be who you want to be. And you take a little from Mom, or you take a little from Dad, or a little from both parents, and you make a you. And kids would light up at that, like, oh, boy, somebody's finally telling me it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not easy for them, because as soon as they say something that sounds like the other parent, don't do that. So I hope that Thomas is a parent who is sophisticated enough to realize that saying you need to be blue like me and not yellow like your mom is not helpful to the child.
Well, and that's an interesting question, because Thomas doesn't tell us whether or what kind of response is the child being reprimanded at the other house for not agreeing with the extreme views of that house? It that's a totally different level of discussion. If he can have what he thinks over there, uh, so you're pointing this in the direction for me that says part of the child's developmental growth is to figure out who the child is.
Correct.
Anyway,
Yes,
so
of
the fact that
course.
I'm getting an extreme view over here and the child's carrying it home, kind of like, trying on a coat or trying on clothes or
Yes.
shoes. Well, let me see how this fits me. And then trying it at dad's house, how dad responds to this becomes far more important than what mom and stepdad are telling him.
Possibly, but it doesn't matter what's happening at the other house. This is the child's perception. And perceptions are built from all kinds of things. Mom and stepmom might not be reprimanding him or saying anything. He just knows
He's picking it up.
He just knows who they are and what they believe and why they believe it and what's important to them. And he's thinking, if I get on their team, maybe I will be a team member that they will approve of.
Value, right.
And so a lot of these cases, the parents aren't trying to indoctrinate them. The child is just very aware that maybe their love's not unconditional.
Okay.
It's conditioned possibly on lots of, they may hear, let's go back to politics, they may hear conversations at dinner time about how much they hate the other side.
Right.
And I don't want to be hated. So I'm going to chime right in and go, yeah. And he's 13, so now he's a young teenager. The older he gets, the more,
Right.
And so, again, we're back to, it doesn't matter what they're doing at the other house. It's what he's hearing that's bothering him, and what can he do?
Who's the he in that?
I'm talking about Thomas.
Thomas is
dad.
upset. Yes, it's bothering him. Right.
It's bothering him. So I think the best thing Thomas could do, instead of saying, where are you getting that from? What are you being exposed to? Who's telling you these ideas? Because it could be from anywhere. But he would be smart to, if he knows enough about mom and the possible relationship between son and mom, and he can predict what's happening over there, he doesn't need to say it.
No.
He can just say, okay, let's talk more about that.
Right.
Did you read that? I'd like to read it. Whatever you read that the sky is green. And when was the sky green? And get more information. Ask questions.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that.
What shade of green? Is it a little bluish or is it a little greenish?
Yeah. And then begin to see, can I introduce another point of view?
That would be the thing I would hope
because
for.
of his age. If he was 6 years old, I would say, great, I love a green sky. What do you want for lunch?
Yep.
But he's 13 and he's getting into that age where you do want to teach him how to critically think or how to see different points of view around a topic. When was the sky green? I'd love to see that. That would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's green all the time.
Let's go look.
But you have to be careful. You're not getting into proving anything or taking it logical, and he could even at some point say, yeah, I could understand why you would need to think that.
Sure. For survival. Exactly.
But he doesn't have to say that. You can, remember we always say, don't answer a question you already know the answer to.
Right.
Is the sky green? Well, do you need to believe it is? And then I get that. But it's really okay. When you're here at my house, you can believe anything you want to believe.
Including that the sky's green.
Or blue, or white, or gray, or whatever.
Yeah.
So in other words,
Dad can model acceptance of varying points of view, including green. Because if he attacks and rejects green, he's not, even though he hasn't substituted it with anything else, he's doing the same thing. Yeah. If mom is indoctrinating.
Or dad could say, I've never seen a green sky, but it's probably possible.
Sure.
So that's really cool. I'd like to see one.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, just so you know, when you're at my house, you can believe lots of different colors. And you're not saying anything about mom.
No.
But you're saying something valuable to the child. Kind of like when we've talked about kids who are alienated and they say, I hate you to dad, or I hate you to mom. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, you can't tell me that, go to your room for 5 days. You can say, wow, it must be hard to feel like you have to hate me. I'm sorry that you're getting that idea that you need to hate me in order to love maybe your other parent. you have to use your own judgment on whether that's something you need to say, whether that's something that will help your child. But you don't really have to say anything about the other parent. That must be hard to think that you have to hate a parent. It must be hard to think that you have to think that the sky is always green, because there are many
It would be
different
hard.
colors in the sky.
Or you're going to run into people who don't think that.
Yeah. Good. That's a good one. And then how are you going to talk with people that don't think that way?
Right. Because you're going to be exposed to various points of view. Don't just think, well, I hope you're going to be exposed to various points of view. How do you treat people? How do you deal with people who see a different color sky than you? Would be a kind of skill that would give him success, or the child success in the future.
And what's the importance of that? And, you might have a child, an older teenager even, that says, well, I don't care. This is what mom says, and this is what I'm believing. And you're okay. Well, I understand why your relationship with your mom is really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you got to say.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're around other people that are not your mom, you are free to believe what you want to believe.
So it is possible, because I was going to ask the question, at what point would you recommend that Thomas actually have a serious conversation about, this, you're thinking about this too narrowly? But
why'd you change your voice when you said that?
Because that was the dumb question I was going to ask. I don't want to ask that one anymore. It is possible that dad can not necessarily challenge the color of the sky, but challenge, or at least introduce the idea of difference, even though it's not dad's difference. It could be, he can introduce the idea of difference going forward.
You really want him to tell him the sky's
no.
not green.
At first I was thinking, we got to do something with this eventually down the road, or this kid's going to be.
I really don't want him to say much about the sky being green, other than that, sometimes the sky is green. I've never seen it. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But I think that's very informative for the dad to know that something is going on that's narrowing the child's focus. So the next time you're sitting down watching TV and a movie comes on and there's a particular point of view that you think might be difficult, you talk about it.
Right. How do you talk about different points of view? How do you
feel about that? And maybe some social issue that has nothing to do with the green sky.
Exactly. Or anything. Yeah. It's just difference.
Mm-hmm. And what you're saying to the child is, with me, you can be all colors, or you can be various colors, or whatever. And this brings me to the other point I think she made in the book, was that occasionally it's really helpful to say to the child something positive about the other parent, even when you don't feel any positive feelings to the other parent. And some parents really struggle with that, especially when you're freshly divorced and everything you think about them feels hateful.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're saying to the child, if you say everything your mom or dad does is wrong and bad and terrible, you're saying to the child that part of yourself might be terrible.
Yeah.
Or I really do have to split myself because there's so much hate between my parents that I can't act like I like my mom in front of my dad. I can't act like I like my dad in front of my mom. So when you say he's making a joke, your 13-year-old, as they make silly jokes or stupid jokes or off-color jokes, and you say, ha, 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 you're really funny. I think you get that sense of humor from your mom.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is that in my house, you're allowed to be that color. There are colors that represent the other parent that I approve of. I might not approve of all of it, but oh yeah, you're really good at math. Your dad was really good at math. I think you got that from your dad. Is invaluable to a child who's feeling like a chameleon, because the child's going to be like, really? You like that about my dad? You like that about me? When I'm here, I can show that shade.
Yes.
I can be that yellow color and not be hated.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know there are that piece of that color that they can be. And it's very valuable to be able to do that, even if it's you have nice thick hair like your mom. Find something that says, I approve of that color in you. You don't have to be the complete opposite color for me to approve of you.
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm going to go in this direction, but 19th century philosophy was all about being united, right? Being
Right.
one thing. And there was this sense of having that we were one voice. And I think what is a great lesson to teach now for our kids is that there is a time and place. I have multiple voices inside of me, depending upon the circumstance. So today it may be incredibly appropriate and okay. That's my green voice.
Mm-hmm.
That's my blue voice. This is my yellow voice. And there are many me's inside, and I can draw on all of them in any particular. And that's what would give me success, both professionally and personally, to be aware of all of those voices and when to use them and where.
And that makes your particular shade on the color spectrum, of which there are infinite shades.
Infinite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's even without perception of those colors. You got the infinite, and then you got the perception of all of those.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Thomas, do have some of those conversations with your son, especially at his age, to give him permission to be whatever color he needs to be.
Yes. Yeah. Reinforce that would be the best lesson you could give him.
Yeah.
And to communicate, model for him that you're not afraid.
And Rick, wouldn't it be great if we could all do that with each other? Not just our children.
Oh, you mean
wow,
now you want to talk politics right here at the end. Sorry, Diane, we're all out of time.
I'm so sorry. I just want everybody to be happy. Not possible.
I just want everybody not to hurt each other at this point.
But I would if we're going to talk about in terms of hold on to, sharing who you are with your child.
Yes.
But giving your child permission to be who he is.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So sometimes parents can become chameleons to their children if they're not careful.
Maybe, or if as a parent, you're not clear who you are,
right.
and you're just following the wind, which way it goes, your child's going to be confused about who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to be who you are, but I'm not all it.
Mm-mm.
There are many different viewpoints, and I can love you no matter what yours is.
Absolutely.
And that's the very simple message.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Thank you, Thomas, for your question.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. The information contained in this podcast is generic. It must not be misconstrued as constituting legal or psychological advice. Decisions relevant to any specific individual, family system, or case require the direct evaluation of skilled, child-centered professionals.